Many of you are getting ready for trick-or-treat, and you may be worried about protecting your children from a very real scare.
Halloween is a special night for young children, one police say predators might try to take advantage of.
Parole officers and police from San Francisco PD were out in full force on Halloween.
Thanks for joining me. This is Solitary Nation. I'm your host, Matt Duhamel. A very interesting topic, a very timely topic on the show for today, for this Tuesday. Halloween is just around the corner. We think of fun, candy, trick-or-treating, parties, families, things like that. We're going to talk to Brenda Jones here in a second. She is the executive director of RSOL, Reform Sex Offender Laws. She is the executive director there, and we're going to talk to her about Halloween restrictions for registered sex offenders and how it's affecting sex offenders, how it's affecting the community, the families, and so forth. Brenda, thanks a lot for joining us on Solitary Nation. I appreciate your time. Tell me a little bit about RSOL and your mission there.
Well, RSOL's main mission, as I would interpret it, is that we're a gathering spot for people that are affected by sexual offense laws, especially, and also for groups and individuals across the country who want to change those laws. And every year since 2009, we've had a conference and invited professionals and advocates to network and share their knowledge and experience. And we've also expanded our educational offerings to include some webinars each month.
Why have you personally been involved? And I want to make clear that your organization is reforming sex offender laws, smarter laws. You're not necessarily against getting rid of the registry. Is that right?
We do want to get rid of the registry if we could. We understand, however, that it's not likely to totally go away. So our official position is actually that it should be private. It should go back to law enforcement only. But we'd love to have it go away entirely, actually.
Yeah, the original purpose, or the way it was originally, was for police only. So why did you personally want to get involved in this? If you wanted to share briefly your story, or why you decided to get involved in this organization?
Sure. I got started in advocacy work back in 2009, right after a family member began serving time for an offense. And I first got involved just for support because I was worried about that. But I very quickly found out that there was a lot of hurt out there. I knew something was wrong, but didn't really understand what. So, I just started learning about these issues and the problems with the laws. And within a matter of a few months, actually got involved in trying to lobby. I've enjoyed the work as much as you can enjoy this kind of work, and really believe in what we do.
I guess I'll start off with some good news. In California, they have that Operation Boo, it's called. Known sex offenders supervised by DAPO are monitored closely by agents to ensure that they don't attempt to attract children to their homes. There's special conditions for sex offenders on parole. But the good news is they found the courts there unconstitutional to display signs that say, no trick-or-treating, lights out, things like that. That seems like a step in the right direction. Do you think it's going to follow now? Since the courts in California are saying, hey, this is pretty extreme. Do you think it's going to follow in other states?
It's really hard to say without a crystal ball, but I'm quite sure that in other states where there are similar posting of signs and such, that there are attorneys and people who have to post the signs that have noted that and might file a new case.
Okay, so it kind of is up to, is it up to the registered sex offenders and attorneys to bring this to court?
It really is. There has to be somebody who's willing to step out there and say, I'm being harmed by this, my rights are being violated, and then some attorney that's willing to work with them to, actually file the complaint.
And I'm sure people watching or listening to the podcast are saying, well, they might be a little bit surprised about some of these laws, but a lot of people might say, I don't care. I don't care. They're a danger to society. They're a registered sex offender. They're a pedophile. They're a predator. All those words, to me, seem to get mixed into the media and confused. So, your honest opinion, do you think these Halloween restrictions solve any type of problem from, people and children and molestation and kidnapping and all that issue?
No. The bottom line really is that there's never been an instance recorded ever of a child trick-or-treating being accosted by someone on the registry.
Why are they passing these laws then? I'm having a hard time understanding how it's just snowballing in some of the states where local, like cities and communities and counties passing these crazy laws. They must read the facts, and I'll talk about that in a second, the surveys showing that it doesn't reduce risk. So I'm trying to figure out why they keep passing them.
I'm not convinced that they actually are reading those surveys. I think there's a lot of people out there that are genuinely ignorant about it. There's a few frightened constituents out there who show up at their city council and say, I'm scared of sex offenders and I want to protect my children, and they'll say things like, everybody knows that people convicted of sex offenses are dangerous. It's always everybody knows. It's just common knowledge. Mm-hmm. But it's actually what they're hearing on TV shows. It's what they're hearing just from the media. They're getting all the scary stuff that's actually mostly made up.
Ghouls, goblins, witches, and wizards. Yeah. Got their fill of fright and fun this Halloween night. Sweets on their minds, safety on their parents.
We try to stay in well-lit areas and just go to people that we know around town.
For many years, to make sure registered sex offenders weren't handing out candy in Anderson County, probation officers showed up at their doors. But for the past 5 years, the agency has taken a different approach, making child offenders and those on probation report to a central location so they can be watched.
It's more cost-effective to have them come here than to waste taxpayers' dollars by driving all over the county all night long, checking on them.
We asked parents if the program gives them peace of mind.
Yes, that they're not allowed to be around their children. Yes, absolutely.
I think it does help, but there's also a false sense of security in if that's all you're relying on, and because if somebody wants to hurt children, they're going to find a way to hurt children.
I wanted to read this kind of a comparison between the Halloween predator scare, and you were just talking about the media, so this is what reminded me of the back in the 80s and maybe a little bit in the early 90s. A lot of the local news stations were reporting, poison in candy, razor blades in candy, make sure you open up all the candy. But the news kept talking about it over and over and over again. Do you see any comparison between like the poison candy and now the Halloween predator sex offender problems?
I do see a lot of parallel. Just the other day when I was on Facebook, I actually made a comment about urban myths, and that I think the dangerous sex offender at Halloween is yet another urban myth. I believe if you research it now online, there's actually a study that just came out that actually calls it a myth. It is just like the other. It's a media induced. It's a panic. There's no basis in reality. And the thing is that it's kind of tied into a larger sex panic issue that's been building up over the past couple of decades. And so unlike the candy that just gradually died away, this one's going to be a little harder to dispel, unfortunately.
I wanted to mention to you, because I wanted to get your opinion, in New York, a county executive argued in favor of the Halloween sex offender laws because he said the holiday is, quote, a unique situation where children are literally showing up at the doors of sex offenders, end quote. He seems concerned. He's for these restrictions. Your response to that?
My response to that is that this executive is clearly focusing on stranger danger. And that's actually very rare. It's a failure to understand the reality of sex offense statistics overall. I mean, 90% of new offenses, any kind of new offense, are committed by somebody who's not even on the registry. And 90% of all these offenses are committed by somebody that the victim already knows and trusts. Mm-hmm. So we're spending all this time, focusing on people that are not at all likely to offend. Meanwhile, on Halloween, a child is 4 times more likely to get struck by a moving vehicle.
This totally blew me away. It's called the Child Sex Offender Holiday. I mean, I'm not making this up. I was almost like laughing about it because it just seems so made up. The Child Sex Offender Holiday Costume Prohibition Law in the state of Illinois, or I don't know if it covers the whole state. I'll have to see, but this is definitely in Wheaton, Illinois. Registered sex offenders are prohibited from passing out candy on Halloween. They may not appear in a Halloween costume or other child-centered holiday characters such as Santa. Why would they be dressing up as Santa on Halloween? I don't know. Or the Easter Bunny in public. And this is the kicker. Registered sex offenders, however, may wear a Halloween costume in their own home. This is expanding into other holidays, it looks like. I am not a lawyer. I cannot, look at this law and tell you exactly what it is. But now they're wondering if it's expanding like Christmas. Can I dress up as a Santa? I mean, it's moving into the religious area of it. It definitely sounds unconstitutional. Are you seeing this trend, or is this more the extreme?
I think is still on the extreme end, but there definitely was an attempt to pass that kind of law. It's been a couple, 3 years ago, and it's still going around a little bit. I know here in Maryland, where I live, they tried to pass it was a nice, vague, broad law. Like, if you're on the registry, you can't celebrate Halloween. We were on top of it, though. We showed up at the legislature, and we pointed out, we pointed out, for instance, okay, does that mean you can't have a party in your own home with your own kid? Does it mean you can't dress up? It was very vague.
Missouri has statutes. They not only ban registered sex offenders from passing out candy on Halloween, but they are also required to avoid all Halloween-related contact with children. Very vague again. Remain inside his or her residence between 5 and 10:30 p.m., 5 p.m. to 10:30. Post a sign reading no candy or treats at this residence, and leave all outside lighting off after 5 p.m. on October 31st. Now, if they decided to violate these laws, it's a Class A misdemeanor. Well, what I'm thinking about this is, years ago, before the sex offender registry was out there and public, there were people that committed crimes against children and adults as well. We didn't necessarily know about them. They weren't public all over the place, but now we do. So why does it make it different now? Like, because we know about where they are, we're panicking. We're creating these laws. We didn't know who they were before, really, unless you looked them up on the police reports. But it was okay back then to show up at somebody's door. So I think I agree with you. It's like kind of a moral panic of some kind. How long do you think it will take to politicians and people to say, wow, we made a mistake, that was just stupid. We need to do something better?
I wish I could say it would be quick. I think those of us who've been in the movement a few years are seeing what we might call a tipping point approaching, where more and more people are starting to get an inkling that something isn't right. I'm not sure we've hit the point where lawmakers and such are quite ready to stand up and announce it out loud. It's still a death sentence if they do, politically speaking anyway. And so I think we have a way to go. I mean, again, it took us 20, 30 years to reach this point in terms of the panic, and tipping it over and then moving in the other direction is probably going to take an equal amount of time. Yeah.
I'll probably be dead.
Hopefully not, but it's a lifetime's work. Yeah, it's a lifetime of work.
If people want to be involved in Reform Sex Offender Laws, your organization, how do they get involved?
Real easy. You show up on our website and you can click Join Now. We have membership options. You can make a donation. There's a volunteer form you can fill out, and we can try to hook you up with people in your state. Or if your state doesn't have anybody yet, then, if you're interested, we might try to, get you going as the first person to connect with us. We have some states with very large groups and other states where we have just one or two people. And, but we're growing. We're growing all the time. So.
Sounds good. It looks like I'm going to have you on for another show, because there were some other topics we didn't get to, like the Miami-Dade encampment, the homeless sex offender issue in Florida, and then these restrictions in North Carolina. We're going to have to leave that for another day. But maybe I'll have you back and talk about that, because there's a lot of concerns and issues. But anything else that you want to mention before we close up here?
Well, we just wanted to wrap up again on the Halloween issue. I would just, again, summarize that the Halloween restrictions, again, they're just based on an urban myth, that they're based on the fiction of, really almost the fiction of stranger danger, where, because most offenses that happen in the home, somebody the child knows. Your child is just as safe on a Halloween night from sex offenders as they are at any other night. The danger, again, is in being out of doors and in traffic.
Would you agree that maybe the danger is more prevalent inside the house than outside the house, because it involves people that you may know and be able to interact with?
It absolutely is. And it's one of the things that RSOL has been trying to point out as often as possible, that and other organizations, that we focus as a nation, we focus so much on the strangers, and that's just a couple of percents, 1 or 2 out of 100, and when most of what happens is happening, again, it's a family member, it's a babysitter, it's a teacher, it's it's people that we know, that we don't want to think of as possibly, being a victimizer.
Well, thank you again, Brenda Jones, the Executive Director of Reform Sex Offender Laws. We'll have your website there at the bottom of the screen. So you're doing an amazing job. And there's a lot of people out there that, and not just registered sex offenders, but families that are looking for smarter laws.
Definitely.
Join me next time on Solitary Nation, and make sure to share our show. You can listen on a variety of apps, Google Music Play and Stitcher, and some other ones on the website as well. Thank you, and join me next Tuesday.